Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. Today I'm going to be making this Easter project, and this is made up of two boxes here and here, which can hold 4 of these size treats, Easter chocolates, and then I have an egg patch in the middle for mini eggs. So this is a project where I've just raided my stash, and it's been a really fun project to put together. I realise you're not all going to have the same dies and elements as me, but it might give you some idea if you want to create something similar and then just decorate it however you want. So I'm going to show you how I put this box together and how I made the egg patch in the middle, and then I'll go through the additional elements at the end. For the boxes, each box will be made up of a piece which is 10.5 by 8 inches, and along the 10.5 inch side, score at 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10. And on the short side, score at half, 3, and 6. And then if you want to have a flap either side, which the lid is then going to come over, I would then score at 2 inches between the 3 inch and 5.5 inch square, and then 2 inches between the 8 inch and the bottom of the cardstock. So you're just adding in 2 additional score lines in this section here, but that is optional. You might not want to have the flap which goes inside the lid. You'll do that once for each box, and then obviously just bear in mind I have made the boxes this size to suit these particular chocolates to fit 4 in, so you can adjust the sizes of the box accordingly. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a project to give you an idea rather than you to follow exactly what I'm doing, because obviously you're not going to have everything in your stash that I have in my stash. So we'll fold and burnish along all of the score lines. Okay, I've got my 1/2 inch tabs at the top and on the right hand side, and I'm going to start by cutting up each of these vertical score lines to the horizontal. This is going to create the 4 tabs for the base of the box. When I get to the last score line, I'm going to completely remove that rectangle, so we don't need this section. Rotate the piece. I'm going to cut up the next score line. This is the glue tab that's going to join the box together, and just take a wedge from there. Now this end section here, this is going to be the lid of the box. So I'm going to rotate and cut down this left hand score line like so, and you want to cut this as straight as possible because this is the lid, this is going to be seen, so just make sure you do remove any of the score line like so. And then I'm going to cut up each of the verticals up to this second horizontal like so. So rotate. I'll cut up the additional score line. The box that I've already made, I haven't got the flap, so I will be cutting these away, but I'll leave them in for now just to show you. Then we're going to completely remove this second from the bottom square, like so. And then again, I'm going to cut up this flap section. I will round off the corners of this tab just because that's my preferred look, and once I've added the pattern paper onto here, I will cut a notch. So I'll just show you how this comes together. If you imagine, that's going to come round here, so that's our glue tab at the back. These are the flaps that come down, and then the lid comes in across the top like so. So I'm going to cut my additional flaps away just because I haven't got those on the first box that I've created, and I would like them to look the same. So that's our box ready for construction. You could at this stage, while the piece is flat, add in your pattern paper, or once the box is constructed. So you would have 4 pieces which are 2 1/4 times 2 3/4 for the 4 sides, and then one piece for the top, which was 2¼ inches squared. So you might want to add those in now, or once you've got the box square. That's again is your choice. But what we will do is very simply, we will add glue onto this glue tab, flip that over. Now you may have noted that the length of the base tabs is not the full width of the box, and the reason for that is so that I could get this out of one sheet of A4 cardstock. I'm going to tip it up, so I'm working on the base. My box is actually going to sit sideways, so this is going to be the front, and my additional rabbit is going to sit on there. So this tab here is going to be the last tab that I want to stick down. So I'm just going to move that one to the back. Do make sure that you've cut away any of the score lines, and if you want to shape those slightly, you can. So this one's going to be my last one. I'm going to add glue on roughly 3/4 of this tab. Fold that one over the top, and then go in with your score tool or a ruler and just spread all that glue around. So that's the box. So I'm going to add my pattern paper onto each of these sides now. So if I bring in my first box, my opening here is to the left, so I've got my rabbit stuck on. So this one, the opening is to the right, so my rabbit is going to go on that surface. The rabbit is made up of circle dies and an oval die which I had in my stash, and then I freehand cut some hands and some feet, and I've just added a heart for the nose and added some pink elements on in alcohol marker. These Easter eggs were ephemera, which was in an old papercraft set from a couple of years ago, so that's just on some foam pads, and I've added some googly eyes. Obviously I've made this up myself, but there are some really good resources on, if you go via Pinterest and put Easter Bunny in, you can then print the elements and make up the rabbit yourself. Or you might want to use another character. You might have something in your ephemera, an Easter chick, or whatever it is. So that is going to be stuck on there. And I'm going to stick that on with some foam pads just to give an element of height to that. So that's my two boxes. In between the two boxes, we're going to have the veg patch. This is going to end up 2½ inches across. So I've started with a piece which is 4 inches, and on all 4 sides I've scored at 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch, and then I've used my circle die to cut 6 holes in the middle, and that's where my mini eggs are going to sit. This is going to be an upside down tray effectively, and again you could make this bigger, change the size of the hole so it works out with any of your whichever chocolate you're using, or you may decide that you want to have a vegetable trough rather than a bed, as it were, so you could actually have a tray or a basket in the middle. I'm going to cut up the first score line on the left up to the second horizontal and remove that section. So I've cut that larger like so, and then I'm going to cut up the next score line and then just create a tab on the end. So you can see this corner is going to come around and that's going to fit together like so. So I'm going to follow that process on all 4 corners. Now I'm just going to glue this together. So that is going to come round and glue like so. You might need to shape your corner tabs to get them. So I'm going to take a slight wedge off of that. And then that is going to come around and adhere inside like so. And then I can just work my way around, gluing this into shape. So these bits are going to fold under. That will be stuck down onto the base, and then that is going to sit in between the 2 boxes for my mini eggs to fit in. So that's going to sit in the middle like so. So they are effectively the 2 elements of construction The rest is about putting it all together and creating the final piece. So I have a piece of cardstock here. Now I'm going to have these sitting flush. So this is 2.5 inches by 7.5 inches, but you might want to make this wider so that you can have some extra elements of decoration in the front, have a sentiment added on the front, so that's entirely up to you. And I have glued 2 pieces of 300 GSM just to make sure this is nice and sturdy, because it's obviously going to be supporting everything. So now it's a case of just putting everything together. So I've raided my stash. I've made a rainbow, the rainbow which is going to sit on the back, which was going through my nesting dies and just cutting a smaller ring each time, and then I've backed that onto some cardstock. I've made a small sign which I've just written egg patch, which I'm going to stick in. I've got some fencing which I've used one of my dies for, and I've added 2 together, so that's going to sit in the front and the back of the egg patch. And then I had in my stash some background scene, and that's going to sit at the back. So all these elements, it's just a case of raiding your stash, seeing what you've had, what you want your design to look at, and more than anything, it was just about having some fun. The rabbits, yes, they might be a bit amateur hour, but I really enjoyed putting those together, and that's what this project is about. My grandchildren, 2 and 4, are not going to be worried about how this is constructed. They're just going to be, more than anything, like all the bright colours and the fun images and interested in the chocolate. So here is the completely finished box. I've added the egg patch and the 2 outer boxes onto the base, and added my fencing in place, and then cut some eggs out of a paper pad that I had. You can see I've added my rainbow onto the background paper, which I then secured to the back of the 2 boxes. So that's nice and secure. And I did add the background paper onto some 300 GSM cardstock as well. So this is really nice and sturdy. I've got my 2 rabbits added onto the front, Happy Easter across the top, and then I used 2 of my dies. I've got a sun here, which is on a spinner because my grandchildren like interactive elements, and then 2 clouds out of my stash which are on a wobbler. And I think it's just a nice vibrant looking piece to have on the shelf at Easter time. So that is my Easter project for my grandchildren. Hopefully this has given you an idea of something that you might want to use the style of and recreate something similar. Of course, you don't need the egg patch in the middle. You could have 3 boxes in a row if that's what you wanted. So there's lots of ways you could change this up. So that's the project for today. The only thing left for me to do now is, I'm actually filming this in February, so I know by the time Easter comes, there's going to be no mini eggs left to put into the egg patch. So I'm going to have to go and buy myself a new packet of those. But I hope you've enjoyed the project today. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.